They told us we were the heroes of science. That's the lie they used to recruit from the bottom of the barrel. I was 6 months behind on rent, living out of a locker when I saw the ad for the Manticore program. $50,000 for a 3-week clinical trial? It seemed like a lottery win to me. There were 12 of us in the gold suite, a windowless subterranean bunker polished to a blinding hospital white. We were just a mix of the desperate, college dropouts, veterans with nowhere to go, and guys like me who just wanted a clean slate. On the first day, the lead researcher, a man named Dr. Eris, with eyes as cold as steel, explained the goal. Metabolic optimization, he called it. A serum designed to push human endurance, strength, and regeneration beyond the natural limit. A super steroid without the side effects. Then came the draw. He stood there with a tray of 12 syringes. 8 contained the Manticore serum. 4 contained saline placebos. It was a double-blind study, and not even the nurses knew who was getting the real thing. I felt the cold bite of the needle in my shoulder, and I waited for a rush, a tingle, a spark. Nothing. I looked at the guy next to me, a kid named Leo. He was barely 20. He looked at his arm and then at me and grinned. "I think I got the water," he whispered. I grinned back. "Me too." We were so happy to be the lucky ones. But we had no idea that in this room, unlucky was the only way to stay human. The first 12 hours were boring. We played cards and we ate tasteless protein mush. But by the second morning, the gold suite started to feel heavy. It started with Miller. He was a big guy, an ex-dock worker who'd taken the serum. He'd stopped talking during breakfast. I noticed him staring at his reflection in the stainless steel tabletop. His eyes weren't just bloodshot, they were leaking. A thin, watery trail of pink fluid seeped from his tear ducts, staining his cheeks. "You okay, Miller?" I asked. He didn't look at me. He just rubbed his jaw. "My mouth hurts." His voice was different, thick, like he was talking with a mouthful of marbles, like my wisdom teeth were coming in all at once. By noon, the weeping had spread to the 7 other serum subjects. They weren't just leaking from their eyes anymore. Their ears were bleeding. Thick, dark ribbons of copper. They sat on their bunks, hunched over and clutching their heads. Then came the sound. It was the sound of bone grinding on bone. I saw Leo, the kid who thought he got the placebo, staring at one of the women, Sarah. Her jaw was extending. It looked like it was unhinging, stretching the skin of her cheeks until it turned a translucent bruised purple. "Doctor!" Leo shouted, banging on the reinforced glass observation window. "Something's wrong. They're sick. Get them out of here." Dr. Eris appeared on the other side of the glass. He wasn't holding a medical kit. He was holding a tablet. He was taking notes. "The transition is beginning." His voice crackled over the intercom. "Subjects 1 through 8, please remain calm. Subjects 9 through 12, please move to the far corner of the room. We need to observe the territorial instinct." That's when I knew. There was no medical emergency. There was only a feeding pen. The first scream didn't sound human. It was a wet, tearing noise. Miller stood up. His transformation was the most violent. His old teeth, the ones he'd had his whole life, started falling out. They clattered onto the floor like hailstones. Behind them, rows of jagged, needle-thin ivory were pushing through his gums, layers and layers deep. His gums were shredded, hanging in tatters, but he didn't seem to feel the pain. He turned to Sarah. She had changed too. Her fingernails had now become long, thick black claws that looked like obsidian. They didn't attack us at first. They attacked each other. It was a blur of gray jumpsuits and red spray. They moved with a terrifying, twitchy speed like insects. Miller lunged at Sarah, snapping his elongated jaw on her shoulder. I heard the collarbone snap. It sounded like a dry branch breaking in winter. The door! Leo screamed. He ran for the main exit, a hydraulic seal. He punched the emergency release. Red lights flashed, a siren wailed, a low guttural groan that shook the floor. The heavy steel bolt slammed home. We were trapped in a 40 by 40-foot room with 8 apex predators who were currently disemboweling each other in a frenzy of accelerated evolution. The vents! Grabbing Leo by the collar, I shoved him. One of the first placebo subjects, an older woman named Alina, didn't make it. Miller had finished with Sarah. He turned, his eyes now entirely black. No iris, no pupil, just empty, dark voids, and saw Alina. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound of her plea cutting off into a wet gargle is something I'll hear until the day I die. I boosted Leo up to the maintenance hatch in the ceiling. He scrambled in. I jumped, my fingers catching the cold lip of the duck. Behind me, I felt hot metallic breath on my ankles. A claw grazed the heel of my boot, tearing through the leather. I pulled myself up and slammed the grate shut just as Miller's new face, a mask of exposed muscle and needle-like teeth, slammed into the metal. The vents were a maze of galvanized steel and dust. It was quiet up here, but the quiet was terrifying. It meant I could hear what was happening below. Slurping and mashing, wet, crunching sounds. They were feeding. The Manticore's serum had ramped up their metabolism so high that they were starving within minutes of transforming. They weren't just killing, they were consuming every gram of protein in that room. We have to find the uplink, Leo whispered ahead of me. His voice was shaking. We have to tell someone. There's no one to tell, Leo, I said, my voice rasping against the metal. Eris is watching, and this is the trial. We crawled for what felt like hours. Every few minutes we passed over a grate. I saw the infirmary, empty. I saw the cafeteria, dark. Then we passed over Lab 4. I stopped. Below us, 2 scientists in hazmat suits were dragging a body. It wasn't one of the volunteers. It was a guard. Subject 1 is loose in the ventilation, one of the scientists said. His voice was muffled by his mask. The pheromone trail is leading him toward the placebo group. We need to see if the unaugmented can develop improvised weaponry. I froze. They weren't just watching us, they were herding the monsters toward us. I heard scratching sounds that came from behind us in the vents. I turned my head. In the darkness of the tunnel, 2 black eyes reflected the dim light of the lab below. It was Subject 5. She had been a track runner before this. Now her limbs were elongated, her joints bending at impossible angles to fit into the narrow pipe. She was smiling. It was easy to smile when you had 100 teeth. Run. We scrambled through the ducts. The sound of her claws screeching against the steel right behind our feet. It was a horizontal heart attack. I kicked back blindly, my boot hitting something soft and wet. She hissed. A sound like steam escaping from a pipe. There, Leo cried. He dived into a vertical chute, and I followed, sliding down a smooth plastic pipe that dumped us into a dark, damp room. The room smelled of salt and stagnant water. It was the drainage sump for the facility. In the corner behind a stack of rusted chemical drums was a heavy iron door with a manual crank. A service tunnel, I breathed. We ran for it. My lungs were burning. My heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my ribs. Leo grabbed the crank and turned. It groaned, protesting after years of rust, but it moved. Behind us, the plastic chute we just tumbled out began to shake. She was coming. Faster! The door creaked open, just enough for a man to squeeze through. Leo went first. I shoved myself through the gap, cold iron scraping my shoulders. I turned and slammed the door, throwing the manual bolt just as the weight of Subject 5 hit the other side. The door dented, but it held. We're in a long concrete tunnel that sloped upward. At the end, a sliver of gray moonlight peeked through the grate. We're out, Leo sobbed, collapsing against the wall. We're actually out. I didn't feel relieved. I felt cold. I looked at my hands. They were shaking, but they were normal. No claws, no black veins. I was the control group. The normal one. The one who survived. We climbed the ladder at the end of the tunnel and pushed the grate aside. We emerged into the crisp night air of a forest. The smell of pine was so beautiful I wanted to cry. Hey, Leo shouted, waving his arms. Down the dirt road, 3 black SUVs were idling, their headlights cutting through the mist. Figures in tactical gear were stepping out. Help! Leo ran towards them. Help us! They're monsters! They're all dead! I started to follow him, but then I saw it. The men in the tactical gear weren't raising medical kits. They weren't holding blankets. They were raising rifles. And behind them, stepping out of the lead vehicle, was Dr. Harris. Leo didn't even have time to look surprised. The first burst of gunfire caught him in the chest. He tumbled into the dirt, his lucky placebo blood soaking into the weeds. I hit the ground, hands behind my head. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I just watched Harris's polished black shoes walk up to my face. Subject 12, Harris said softly. Remarkable. You showed a 14% higher cognitive response to stress than the previous control groups. Your navigation of the ventilation system was inspired. Why? I choked out, the dirt in my mouth. You killed them. You turned them into animals. Harris knelt down. He looked at me with the same cold academic interest. The Manticore serum isn't a weapon, he whispered. It's a harvest. We needed to see which biological markers survived the transition. The aggressive subject provided the raw power, but you... He reached out and touched my temple with a gloved finger. The ones who survived the hunt without the serum. You have the neurological hardware we need to stabilize the next batch. You aren't a volunteer anymore. Subject 12. He stood up and nodded to the guards. 2 of them grabbed my arms, dragging me back toward the dark maw of the tunnel. You're the new blueprint! As they threw me into the back of the SUV, I looked at the forest one last time. I realized then that the serum subjects weren't the monsters. They were just hungry. The monsters were the ones who were full.